This is You and the Law on AM 650. Now back to the show.
Nice to have you with us this Sunday morning. It's Family Law with the folks from Lindsay Kenny LLP in Vancouver and Langley with us this morning. Angela Thiel is a partner in the Vancouver office. Punit Kera is an associate in the Langley office. And the premise that I employed a few minutes ago, Angela, was this whole matter of we had a big spat last night and somebody stormed off and it's the end and you just get that sinking feeling in your stomach that this is not going to end well. So it's time to get on to the lawyer. And thank you for your help in helping us sort of sift through the process of finding a lawyer to represent you in these difficult family issues. What about when you get that call from that person? What requirements do you have aside from informing yourself of the circumstances? What legal duties do you have in this instance?
Well, the Divorce Act and generally our ethical obligations require us to discuss chance of reconciliation. And, frankly, as a parent of a couple of kids and, being in a long-term marriage that's had its ups and downs, I'm probably in a good position to talk about reconciliation with people, because if somebody says, we had this fight, and you start into a discussion and you've got a woman who's been out of the workforce for 10 years.
Right.
And they don't have a lot of money, and she thinks, I get something like this, well, my girlfriend says I get to stay in the house till the kids are 18, and he's got to support me, and I don't have to go back to work. Well, if you're getting that type of response, it is your obligation to be objective and realistic with the person, because there are people that have a fight and, as far as they're concerned, it's over.
Right.
But it might not be over if you say, well, and I can remember having these discussions when I worked in the Langley office. I'd say to a woman, well, you're home with the kids, and that's a privilege. And, you're lucky enough to be able to do that because you bought this house for $80,000 10 years ago.
Right.
But it's not $80,000 anymore. And by the time you split it up, you're going to be probably not able to buy. And you do have to go back to work, and, you're going to be making $12 an hour. And maybe the reason you're having this fight is because your husband is commuting an hour down the road to go to work. And you're saying to me, well, he doesn't seem too interested in what I've been doing all day when he comes home. And I say, well, to give him 5 minutes to sort of relax and, have a drink and read the paper. And I'm being sexist here because in my home right now, I'm working and my husband is semi-retired.
Okay.
So I know how annoying it can be to come home and I've had a really busy, tough day, and my husband's gone to play golf. And, I love the man, and it's fine that he's retired because he's older than me. But being able to say, well, this is a time in your life, either you've got young kids and there's lots of stresses. This is a time in your life that can be very stressful.
Right.
Don't you think maybe before you make this decision, A, you should know what's going to end up when you get a divorce, and B, have you tried some counseling?
Right.
And the Divorce Act and the pleadings we issue require us to say, as lawyers, that we've had those discussions.
Punit, does it happen, just following exactly on what Angela was saying, with respect to the reconciliation, exploring the possibilities and perhaps counseling as a remedy? Clearly, you have to do the same. You have the same obligations in every case. Have you found that there is a percentage of reconciliation as a result of all of this, or do most people say, "Nope, that's it. It's over. We're out of here"?
It depends upon the case, honestly speaking, but absolutely that's the role as a lawyer we play, is to tell about the consequences and lay the field for them of what they are, what they need to take into account when separation or when they're considering separation.
Right.
But some of these people come on when they're considering separation and they haven't really made up their mind. So as lawyers, I think we can play a role there. And I see myself more as a counselor that time and saying, see the circumstances, see the issues, try and go for marriage counseling. And some of these people do go. And I would say, some percentage, I'm not comfortable stating a percentage, but I think maybe at least 20% people do go back and sink in and think about it hard before they actually take the step towards proceeding with the divorce. So I do that. And in fact, on the other hand, I see people who come and who really want this marriage to work, but the other spouse has said it's not going to work.
Right.
And it's hard for them to accept that fact. And as a lawyer, you need to do that part as well and say, you've made the efforts, you've gone through counseling, the other side has perhaps issued the pleadings already against you. I think you need to accept the situation and move forward and deal with the issues. So you get both sides of the coin here.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Angela, let's assume, though, once we now understand that every divorce lawyer in British Columbia has a duty to explore the possibility of reconciliation. It's part of the process, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so let's assume that's been dealt with and there is no possibility of reconciliation. The three items we identified we wanted to talk about on today's episode of You and the Law are spousal support, parenting arrangements, and child support. So let's start with item number one. And first of all, a lot of us, I think in our minds, lump together spousal support and child support. Why do you separate them out?
Oh, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, the first thing is that spousal support still remains tax deductible and taxable in the hands of the recipient. So
also, it's income if you're receiving spousal support.
That's
correct. What Revenue Canada says.
And it's deductible for the fellow or woman paying it. So it's it's the process of figuring out whether someone is entitled to spousal support is a fairly complex process, which starts with imputing some numbers into a computer program. And so as you're having this discussion about, well, what are your life circumstances?
Sure.
So let's start with an easy life circumstance. My husband gets a T4 from ICBC for $120,000. We have 2 kids, and I'm a part-time secretary, and I've been out of the workforce. I'm only making 20 hours a week. But the kids are in school, and there is daycare available for them.
Okay.
So the first thing you do is you put some numbers in a computer chart, and you're going to sort of move around those numbers. So let's say you start with, well, you're working part-time now. But the courts may say, well, there's no reason why you shouldn't be working full-time. So you'll put in the number for her of $20,000, which is what she says she's making now, and you'll let the computer calculations run. And what happens is the first number that comes out is child support, and that's a mandatory number based on an income. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about that.
Okay.
Then you put in a calculation for daycare expenses, which are really high in Vancouver.
They're unbelievable. Yeah. And that's under the general heading still of child support, though, isn't it?
It's called a special expense.
Okay.
And a special expense is shared proportional to income. Then you'll put in a first run-through with her income at $20,000, and you'll get a number. And then you'll say, but the argument's going to be you can work full-time.
So let's adjust that to an annual income full-time.
Right.
Okay.
But then we also have to adjust the daycare cost because
it'll be greater, won't
it'll be greater.
Sure.
And so those numbers move up and down depending on what you impute, what sort of what goes in comes out with a different answer. And the reason it has to be done by a computer is it's all driven, spousal support is driven by marginal tax rates. And so if I've got, and the way you get to what is the spousal support is after each person, after child support is paid by dad, let's call it, on his income, which is not deductible, and child support is notionally paid by mom on her income, again, not tax deductible. The computer looks at what is left and divides that in, one of 3 sort of norms. This is what you're going to get as spousal support based on what's the money left in the family pot.
Okay.
And a certain percentage for, we call low, medium, high. And those percentages are based on, or what you're going to get are based on the framework of your marriage. So, for example, if I'm a teacher who put a lawyer through school, worked part-time, lost out on pension opportunities, didn't finish, my master's thesis, didn't take opportunities to be a vice principal. Meanwhile, my lawyer husband has gone straight up on the trajectory of his income because I've been at home,
Making it all possible.
making it all possible,
Sure.
then that's going to be high range. If I was a secretary and I didn't have a lot of pension benefits or room for advancement, I can get back into the workforce about where I got left.
We left, right.
That's going to be perhaps more low or medium range.
I see.
So everybody comes in and they feed you some numbers. So that's an easy case. The hard cases are what is this income? A lot of people tax plan, and
sure.
There's a concept called pre-tax corporate income. And that is if I run a law firm or I'm a lawyer and I get my money through a corporation and I write off this and I write off that and I give some money to my kids, dividend it out while they go to school and, maybe write off part of my mortgage for a home office. The lawyer's job is to figure out exactly what income is. Now, that's the person who does it, let's call it legally with some tax planning. Then
Right,
you get the
right.
person who half of his income isn't being reported to the tax man. They live in an $800,000 house with no mortgage,
Right.
but the income shows as $25,000 a year. And you're going, so how is that possible?
Exactly, right. Is it safe to assume, though, that, because we're talking about spousal support, in a divorce settlement, mandatory at all times, in all cases, with no exception, is child support. Some child support will be found in every divorce settlement, but spousal support may not necessarily be found in a divorce settlement. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Child support, even when you've got two parents who are sharing the kids, if their incomes are virtually identical, there won't be child support paid one to the other if they're doing a 50-50 or 60-40 set-off.
Right.
But there's still a consideration of it because sometimes it's not just income issues. The law says, well, look at all the conditions, needs, means, and circumstances of the family. So you can have a situation where you've got a fellow with a fairly low income, but mom and dad have bought him a free and clear house.
Right.
And is it really fair that you just look at his income in determining that, if he's half-time with his wife, what is his wife going to get in child support when she's paying a mortgage? So you still have the discussion about child support and the determination and then how are we going to resolve this. In spousal support, if there's not money left in the family, spousal support is the lowest priority.
Okay, a quick question before we take a break. And this is a real-life example of friends of mine in their 50s, late 50s, divorced a few years ago. And part of the award or the settlement, and it didn't go to trial, but it was obviously dealt with by lawyers. She was a stay-at-home mom. He was a very successful businessman. She has earned or been awarded part of his pension indefinitely. Is that common?
Oh, very much so.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty well mandatory.
Oh, okay. Because he has, I'm sure, quite a handsome pension, but he's also about to, in fact, he has retired since he's become divorced. So she has no visible means of support, to use an old cliche. So that would be the basis upon which pension income was awarded to the spouse?
Well, a pension is always a family asset. So the asset itself gets divided,
Okay.
and if it has an income stream component, the income gets divided. When you are dealing with spousal support, it may be because a pension comes along. Now we end spousal support and we carry on with we're going to have our split of pension income. The biggest issue with spousal support is when does it end?
Right. Well, we'll talk about that when we get back. We need to take a quick break here. This is You and the Law here on another wonderful Sunday morning on AM 650. Our guests are Angela Thiel and Puneet